Welcome, everyone. So my name is Govinda Holtby, and I'm a volunteer just like you guys. I'm here on Whidbey Island, and actually this is 15th season with the Guillemot group. So, woo! Um, Very excited to start another year, another summer. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement. And we do recognize that we are on the territories of many indigenous tribes, like the Snohomish, Chimacum, Duwamish, Nisqually. And since we're kicking off the season here, acknowledgement is a great first step as recognition. But what changes can we make for the future? And there's a writer by the name of David Truer. He is part of he's a member of the Ojibwe tribe. And he says there's no better remedy for theft of land than land, right? And so he's written an article in The Atlantic. I have on the screen here is a interview that he did on PBS to talk about the national parks, which are really the gems of America. And many of our land acknowledgements, we talk about the indigenous folks being stewards of the land. Well, let's give the parks back to the tribes for control and management. So I invite you all to maybe dig a little deeper and listen to this interview on your own time. And if you feel the spirit, I've got the White House switchboard number here on the right. And call them up and tell them what you think. So I say, damn good idea. Okay, so here we are, Salish Sea Guillemot Network, past 20 years now. And I was just talking with Shannon beforehand, I think we're at 8 different regions now and growing. And we have more partners, a couple of corporate partner like Ott and Hunter. University of Washington has been great using our data and helping with some population models. Of course, Audubon Washington has given us grants over the years. So the list keeps growing. But basically, I've got kind of our 3 objectives here for our survey is we're really just collecting breeding bird data. We're looking at what kind of prey the guillemots are bringing to their chicks and the populations of the guillemots here around the Salish Sea, and promoting bluff stewardship. And I say also kind of keeping eyes on the beach. So, and continuing this long-term monitoring. So I've added a few slides here of our awesome website. And you can see here is our survey toolbox and everything that you need to know. It's a drop down. So you can click on the survey toolbox main page. And as you scroll, this is what you see. Keep scrolling and you can go to our survey training videos. And we have, I think, 6 of them. The first one being an introduction to the pigeon guillemot. The second one is our science and ecology and kind of more detailed life cycle, what it's like to be a beach volunteer for the 3rd, data collection and protocol. Number 4, but though very important because we are a science-based survey. Number 5, filling out the beach data sheet. And then number 6 was our Zoom training for last year. So please look at all those videos, 1 a day for a week, and then you're set. Okay, so as we scroll down here from the main page, you can see that you'll get to the beach data sheet and your fish ID card that you can download. And then scrolling down almost to the bottom of the page is a new beach data sheet, which is the burrow not visible. It's a new protocol that we're starting in a few key spots Here on Whidbey, it's just the Clinton Ferry Dock. And if you are part of this new BNV and need questions answered, talk to your regional person. But if all you need is the beach data sheet, then this is where you can find it to download it. And then at the very bottom of this page was the weekly updates that Shannon had done last year. And they were great. It can be very lonely on the beach. And it's nice to have that connection with the rest of us, you know, all the volunteers of what's going on a weekly basis. Shannon said that she would do it again this year, so I'm excited to see the photos and the stories that come up in the upcoming season. Okay, so of course, why do we love guillemots and why do we need them? And so they are not a pigeon, but they are a seabird in that Alcid auk family. Our guillemot is up there on the upper left. And zeroing in a little bit more to the actual guillemot family, the pigeon guillemot, you can see here with 2A with that black wedge and the white wing patch in its breeding summer plumage. Down here at the bottom of 2D is what more of a juvenile dusky will look like, and you may see those come August or so. And then our wintering is that 2C, more of that mottled kind of plumage, but in each one you can still see that black wedge in the white wing patch. Dead giveaway. So population here for the pigeon guillemot, they're endemic here to the North Pacific, down through Alaska, coastal BC, Washington, Oregon, and California. And then here on Whidbey, we've got right around 25 colonies or so. So the guillemot, you can see that its feet are situated far back on its body. Nails not to be messed with, although they don't really make their own burrow by scratching it out. I did see this down in the South Sound where the bluffs are a little not as hard of the clay that we have up here at Whidbey. So they may make it a little bigger, but they don't necessarily excavate their own burrow. Of course, we love that red mouth lining that they have. And just those awesome angelic trills. Every other seabird out there has croaks and grunts, but these guys are just music to my ears. They are a little feisty, and they will be sort of scrapping and doing these territorial displays. And you probably see that on the beach now. If you're walking along the beach or at the beginning of the survey, you'll see a lot of that. Short, kind of stubby wings that really help them do that swimming underwater to catch their prey, which is on the very bottom. And they sort of, you know, zigzag to catch that prey underwater. Not great flyers, very rapid wing beats, and when they do land on the water, it's, you know, kind of that belly flop. And when they're on land, you can see that they are kind of like penguins, that those feet are really far back on the body, and that is helps them because so they can dive down and under the water. And I can't really recall, but I think birds spend maybe like 80% of their time preening, and the guillemot is no different. You know, as a flyer and a swimmer, they really need to take care of these feathers. So you'll just often see them kind of zipping up their feathers and doing a lot of preening on the rocks. Right about now, they're, you know, coming in to their colonies, and they're doing those territorial displays, these kind of synchronized flying. There's a behavior on Whidbey, we sort of call it the touch and go, or the zoomies, where everyone decides to fly up to the bluff, to a burrow, kind of like maybe touch it and then fly back around. But they do like hanging out on the beach. and they do like hanging out with each other. They're colonial, so, you know, safety in numbers. A lot of ledge sitting and a lot of rock sitting. Mating behavior, you'll probably see some of this. They sort of circle around each other and show off those great red feet, and then one just kind of hops on the other, and, you know, 4 seconds and they're done. They also do a lot of, you know, this kind of billing and pair bonding, strengthening, and you can see them kind of all sort of paired up out on the beach or out on the water. Now, this behavior, not very scientific. We just call it apartment shopping, or a ledge sit, but they will typically sit in front of the burrow that they would like to occupy. So when you do fill out your beach data sheet, this is not a visit to the burrow. It's just more of a ledge sit too.
Hey, be nice.
And these burrows can go back quite a ways. On the top left is an illustration from David Sibley. The kingfishers are the ones who excavate the first burrow, and then kingfishers will continue to excavate new burrows each year, and the guillemots kind of pick it up on the used market. Here on Whidbey, and we have a lot of those high bluffs with the trees, and so many of those burrows for us are in these roots, in the root line of the trees. And so as we, you know, move on into the season, guillemots are sitting on their eggs. Typically it's 2, and they'll sit on those eggs for 30 days. Both parents will incubate. And once the egg hatches, it's not a very large egg, and it is kind of that sort of oval shape. So when it rolls, hopefully it just rolls in on itself and not out of the burrow and onto the beach. And it does take about 30 days to fledge. This is a photo that Francis had taken at the Burke. The top bird is just newly hatched, a couple of days old. And then the very bottom is just before fledging. So if you can just see that size difference, so that is eating a lot of fish in that 30 days that they got to really just fatten up before they fledge. And here's another version of a sort of the chick progression from newly hatched to almost fledging. And you can see just how much they do need to grow. So walking along the beach, you may see these burrows with this guano kind of dripping down. That's a good sign that it could be occupied by pigeon guillemots, but not necessarily. We do have other cavity nesters like these owls. So let me just back up though. So that I would say that, you know, keep an eye on that burrow, but it's not necessarily making it an active burrow because there's guano. This is actually at Shore Meadows. We have really high bluffs, and you can see here the guillemot is making a visit into one of those burrows at the root line. And here's another Shore Meadow shot. I've got, I think, 5 guillemots here. So they can be a little camouflage. And then this guy with a delivery getting ready to enter that burrow. Quick video. Sometimes they take a long time, but sometimes it's super quick. Oh, okay. And then typically pigeon guillemots fledge at night. Although this photo was taken, and I do have a video that follows this. This was at 9 o'clock in the morning on the east side of Whidbey. We have these rocky beaches at Harrington, and they just kind of tumble out of the bluff, and it's in their DNA to just beeline it for the water because that's where they're safest. and taking this video. I held my breath the entire time. So a little bit choppy. This was back when we had videotape and we had to digitize it. Come maybe August, possibly early August, mid-August, you'll start to see juvies that are just kind of hanging around, that are newly fledged. Usually they will just beeline for the water and then they're on their own, but some will hang around and maybe even beg for food from other guillemots. So you can be on the lookout for those. And then later on in the year, as that modeling takes hold and winter approaches, you start seeing the birds looking like this. And then as we turn the corner to, January, February, they molt back into that breeding plumage. And this, you can see here, is sort of that real in-between stage of that molt. And so the $20,000 question of why do we study them? Well, we do consider them indicators of health for the Salish Sea. We study them because they're the only seabird that commonly nests around the area. Of course, we get cormorants too, but not as much as the guillemots. And they are a top predator. So if you think of the food chain, not much eats the guillemot. They don't have very many marine predators except the orca whale and Pacific giant octopus. Of course, many land predators, a lot of raptors and things, but for the marine environment, they're one of the top on their food chain. And the other reason is we just, we live here in the Salish Sea. We just want to continue our long-term monitoring. We're over 20 years now, and we can't stop now. So we just want to continue adding to our data, and we just get a better idea of the health of the area with the more data that we have. Much like the Christmas bird count, I would say. And so with that data, it doesn't just sit locked away in a box and then we just keep adding to it. We use it and we send it out to a lot of our partners, mostly the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and University of Washington has been using our data. I've got a couple of slides here from the Aquatic and Fisheries Science School at UW, and they're talking about our great guillemots here and the science data that we've got. And you can look on their webpage if you like on your own time, but here's just a little snapshot. Also, the Fish and Wildlife, the Puget Sound Vital Signs, talks about a few different birds, and they've been using the pigeon guillemot as one of those indicator birds, and you can see it right here on the circled on the top right. Of course, they have the Salish Sea Guillemot Network as their data source, which is great. So you can see that really this data is being used out into the environment, not just being, locked away and that. So here's a big part of our study is what kind of fish the guillemots are feeding to their young. And we're focusing on 3 different fish types, or I should say 2 different. The gunnel/prickleback is one, sort of a long eel-like fish. There's many species of the gunnel and prickleback, so they come in a lot of different colors, but they're all kind of that same shape, that long eel-like, or it looks like a piece of pasta. And often the guillemot will sit with that prey in their mouths, in their beaks, before they deliver to the burrow. And if you are monitoring on a colony that has low bluffs, then that guillemot may just be sitting there kind of right in front of you. If it's a higher bluff, they will fly out and they have to taxi and get enough altitude to deliver to a higher bluff. Our next fish type is the sculpin. And this is kind of that spiky, spiny fish. It's got a big bull head with sort of a triangular body. Here's a few different photos of that. Sculpin mouth open was something to remember. They're, I don't know, I have a friend who calls them double uglies. And then our third category is other/unknown. So if you know your fish type and it's not a sculpin and it's not a gunnel and it's a shrimp or cod or something, by all means, you can write that down. But if you don't know what it is, that's okay too. So basically just those three categories is what we're focusing in on. And so because you can see in this photo with the diving seabird here with the feet so far back on the body, they can't just burst into the air like a grouse or a pigeon would. They really have to run on the water and gain that momentum to kind of taxi and become airborne. Often when they do deliver prey to their young, they will have an escort as well. So be on the lookout for that. And there are a lot of disturbances for the guillemot. So we talked a little bit of the predators in the marine environment, but for land, there's a lot of the raptors, peregrine falcon, of course, bald eagles, the corvids, crows, and ravens. People and dogs can disturb the colony while walking through, motorized boats, kayaks, things like that. So life isn't easy for the guillemot. There's somebody out there is wanting to eat them or their prey. And so here we are, ready for the survey, right? Get out the iced tea and the sunscreen. But you know that we also have January is just around the corner. So even though it's nice now and 70 degrees, it could definitely drop down and become rainy and windy. So this was Fort Casey, where I had substituted a day, and it was, I would say, very difficult to count the guillemots and distinguish them between the bull kelp out there. But there was one, and then here's a second. So, some days the survey can be quite challenging. So dress in layers, get, gloves, coffee, hot cocoa, hand warmers. And then eventually the sun will come out and it'll be the great Northwest summers that we all know and love. So I have this to illustrate that we don't want to be counting every black dot that's out there. So we want to be, when we count our guillemots, we are looking at guillemots that are associated with the colony. And so I have here in the upper left, there's a bunch of birds out there. Don't count those. They're too far away and they're not really associated with the colony in this photo. And down here on the right, you can see there's a couple of birds kind of out in the surf. And again, we're not counting those. You should be able to see the guillemots that are kind of sort of close in to the bluffs. Same here. We've got, a little smattering of 10 or so guillemots kind of close in, but there's other ones that are out here that we're just not going to be counting for the survey. They're too far out. And just a little close-up of that. And you can see that there are a few that are out there and just just do the Guillemots that are close in. So here we are at Colony, and there are
We're gonna have to wait.
burrows in the bluff, but they're not necessarily active until a Guillemot flies in. But by all means, go ahead and you can map out your colony and, you know, have some place markers for when it does become active. And here are two possible burrows that would become active. You can also number your burrows. You could also make a drawing, for instance. And then onto our beach data sheet. This is an example of what we don't want you to do. I tried to write this in my messiest handwriting I could think of, and I got some coffee stains and I crumpled up the paper to just make it look like this is what you don't want. And that includes this chicken scratch. I can't even read my own handwriting here. Same with our point in time counts. I can't tell if that's a 34 or 39 or 39 or 31. And then same for our burrow IDs. We want, you have 3 numeric placeholders for those IDs, and they can be a letter or a number or both. But all of these examples, except for that top one that says A1, but the rest of those are just wrong. You are not able to do hashtags or lowercase, or this bottom one, this A-15, no dashes. What we want is just a number or a letter or both, and in all caps. So we don't want that. We're going to burn it up. What we do want is your beach data sheet to be in your nicest, absolutely nicest handwriting. We had one surveyor who would type it, bless their heart. You don't have to do that, but if you want to, that would be great. So I rewrote this in my bestest handwriting that I have. And these 3 point in time counts, very clearly written. And we have a check mark that if you don't have any visits for that week, then you can just please check that little box. And onto those burrow IDs, everything written here is correct. So you can have an A6, you could have just a 4, an A7, 65, you know, 119, burrow 11, burrow D55, all of those are correct. But you cannot be writing in lowercase or burrow by the white pipe or something like that. You have to give it a number or a letter or both. And then lastly, the fun begins for Guillemot Appreciation Day again this year on the 28th at Otten Hunter. And I hope you all can make it. We'll do a happy hour from 3 to 5, special glass pours. We're going to have a fantastic charcuterie display. Of course, our data findings and lots of activities, felt feet that you can cut out. And I hope to see you all there at the Guillemot Appreciation Day. So that's the kind of abbreviated presentation for our training, but I really encourage you all that you really need to be watching the rest of these 5 videos that we have on our website. And those go into a lot more detail of how to fill out the beach data sheet, our protocol, which is super important, and how to be a beach volunteer, mostly really to dress like a piece of driftwood, to be quiet, you know, and also we're walking along private property at 7 o'clock in the morning, so we need to be quiet there too. But I would say lastly, this has been such a great organization over the years, and our science is so just we have such great rigor and very strict protocol, and that's why the data is so great, and that's why these agencies trust us, because they know that we're going to do our 3 point in time counts exactly at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the survey, and things like that. So it is super important that we, follow all of these protocols to a T, really. And so, yeah, the videos that we have on the website talk more detail about that. And so please watch those. Okay, and that's what I have, and we can open it up for questions. Shannon, should I share the screen back to you then, or?
Sure.
Okay. Figure out how to do that.
Yeah, so you can either raise your hand or you can throw a question in the chat, and we'll try to get to everybody's questions if we can. We've got plenty of time, so. Is there anyone out there who wants some clarification or questions about the survey?
Can I speak up?
Sure.
Yeah, I have two questions. I know there's waterproof paper. Is there anything like that that you have? And the second question is, what about binoculars?
Yeah, there is waterproof paper. There used to be a company out of Tacoma called Right and Rain. I don't think they're around anymore. So I get my waterproof paper from a company out on the East Coast, and I think it's called Puffin Paper. And so I'll just buy a box of 100 sheets. And you could search around, and we could have a link to that company on our website. And but maybe somebody else has a lead on some more waterproof paper, possibly. But that's where I get mine. I see Steve Kohler. You have a. Oh, I'm sorry. And binoculars. Yeah, you do want binoculars. 8x42s is a good size to have.
And I'll just add one note about binoculars. Just make sure that you're not holding them up to your eyes the entire time. I know it's really easy to miss some action if you're trying to do that, and I've seen some surveyors that are really trying to follow the birds, but really the best way is to look with your eyes. And then if you need to verify a fish identity or to help you count heads in the bunch, binoculars are really helpful. But definitely I encourage people to put them down and see what you can see with your eyes too. It's much easier to follow the birds when they're circling around and heading for the burrow if you're looking with your eyeballs. So
Thanks.
that's the tip. Okay, let's see. We have a few things in the chat here. Oh, the data sheet. Yes, it is the same one as last year. If we do any updates to the data sheet, we will upload that latest version to the website. But right now it's the same version, and we'll always have the most recent version on the website in that toolbox that Govinda showed you. So let's see. Oh, there's a link in the chat to waterproof paper and forestry supply, of course, Amazon. They've got our backs. Let's see, Janet says, I've noticed the birds seem to be less nervous when we are moving rather than when we're appearing to be a stealth predator. Oh, that is a very good observation. I find that if we're staring at the birds, they know. And so they tend to hang on to their fish and not proceed to deliver. So sometimes what I do is I just kind of pretend to look away for a second, and then you'll see that they will wind up and go. So that's definitely a very good observation. If you're just staring at them, they're going to be wary.
And I see Steve, you have your hand up.
Yes, about filling out the burrow data sheet. Okay. Last year, and I was out at Dungeness Spit at the with Linda Nakamura out on the Olympic Peninsula. There are boroughs west of the Spit and the bluffs west of the Spit. Anyway, during the month of June, there were PIGU visits, okay, regularly. We had 4 boroughs that were being visited. And so in my data sheet, I numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4. We didn't get any prey deliveries until July. And the boroughs number 2 and 3 never had any prey deliveries, but there were 3 boroughs between number 1 and 2 that were getting regular prey deliveries. So to better identify them, and I did this with photographs too, with identifying text on the photographs, but I labeled them 1A, 1B, 1C because I didn't know how else to do it. I mean, what do we do then?
That sounds good to me. I would say that's perfect. You could do 1A, 1B, 1C.
Because I had initially identified 2 and 3, but they, as far as I knew, there was never any nesting happening in those 2 boroughs, even though during the month of June they were checking them out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I think you answered my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we just don't want, 1 dash, or 1 point, but you can have any number or any letter for the boroughs. And they don't have to be sequential, in order, just as long as you know what borough is associated with what number.
Okay, just to clarify that, I did that because I was looking, I'm going from east to west. So I didn't want to put in, a number 5 between what I had already identified as 1 and 2. Or is that okay? They don't have to be sequential?
Nope, they do not have to be sequential. You could, like I'm picturing your colony, and you could have borough 1, 6, 2, 9, 3. It doesn't have to be in order at all.
Oh, I guess
Yeah.
I'm just too sequential.
You're too organized.
Some people like to pre-number them and some people like to number them as they become active. So it's up to you how you want to do that. And also early in the season, we often see PIGU that are sort of apartment shopping. So they're visiting boroughs, but then they're not necessarily laying eggs there. So you may not see prey deliveries. It's hard to tell what they're doing, but yeah, it's common to see that early in the season.
Mhm.
Jean Jacobson has a question.
Hi, yes, I'm not sure if this got answered somewhere, but do we know when we're getting started?
Well, on Woodby, our week 1 is June 3rd, and we have a couple of colonies that sometimes start a little bit earlier, like maybe a week beforehand. What would you say, Shannon? Do we?
Yes, so I think officially we start June 2nd. So that's a Sunday. We're running Sunday through Saturday. So, and I believe all of the regions are starting the same week,
Okay.
unless you're one of those colonies that has activity and has decided to start early. But otherwise, just plan to start the week of June 2nd.
And we do ask that you visit your colony at the same day every week. We do have a couple of colonies that are tough because of tides, that they have to switch the days, but we want to be as consistent as possible.
Thank you.
Catherine Tooker has a question.
You're muted, Catherine.
There we go. I have a question about the prey delivery. Is the prey delivery always for the chicks, or does one pair ever feed the other mate that's sitting on the eggs?
Yeah, I've never seen that. What I have seen is that they take turns. Okay, your turn to incubate. And
Okay.
the literature states that the adult guillemots, they dive down and they consume their own prey underwater.
Oh,
But
okay.
except one day, Francis and I were sitting on the beach and we saw an adult bring its prey up, and maybe it just forgot it had it in its mouth and downed the gunnel. So,
Mm.
I've seen that.
but typically, if you see a prey in the guillemot's mouth, that is destined, 99% of the time, destined for a chick in a burrow.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We have some questions in the chat. Kelly is asking if we're partnering with others when we do the survey, or do we do this alone? Also, if doing alone, do we choose our regular day for surveying? So that's sort of a colony by colony question. I'm not sure where you're assigned, Kelly, but generally there's a team assigned to each colony, and that team will decide which day they are going out to survey. So you may need to talk with your regional lead to find out where you're assigned and who's going to be surveying with you. Every so often we have a small colony where maybe one person's monitoring that, but I think generally people are going out in teams.
And I do want to add that if it does happen that you are a solo surveyor, and this is also in our protocol, that just let somebody know where you're going, so they know that, if you don't get washed away, or if something happens, that, somebody knows you're on the beach. Cell phone service is often really good on these beaches too, so bring a cell phone. Of course, you'll need, a timekeeper anyway for the survey, but.
And then Brenda says, I have a duplex burrow. How will I identify it for this year's survey? I think we might need more information about what a duplex burrow is, Brenda.
I have 4 pigeon guillemots coming out of the same burrow. They're right next door to my house, so I see them all the time. I walk the beach all the time. Just yesterday, 4 of them came flying out of a burrow. And I've seen this several times this year. They've been pretty active early this year, I have to note, in this one particular burrow. And so it's like, there's obviously 4, all I can think of is the burrow has split, and so they've maybe got separate burrows in the main hole. I don't know. It's perplexing.
I'm perplexed.
I know. I saw with my own eyes like 3 times.
Brenda, what region are you in?
I'm on Harstein Island
Okay.
in the South Sound at
Yeah.
Briscoe East.
That's definitely unusual. It's hard to say exactly what's happening. So I think you would just have to report it like you would a regular burrow.
Okay.
You may have more visits than normal, but I wouldn't know how else to say for sure what's happening in there. So
I agree.
all of the visits.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, and actually last year, I reported it on my surveyor. It was a different burrow, but I saw 3 or prey deliveries in one burrow. And it wasn't this burrow, it was a different one from last year.
Sometimes I wonder if there's a helper. I've heard that there could be a helper PIGU and maybe it's one of last year's offspring, or from
Sure.
one that was hatched there previously and is helping. So I think that's a possibility, and it could also just be 2 pairs that are sort of
Commingling?
trying to claim the same burrow. I don't know.
Yeah, it was just very interesting that I saw that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good observation.
And often we'll see prey two birds go into the burrow, one right after the other.
Mhm.
Prey. And again, like what Shannon said, it could be, you know, the same family because there's two chicks, or maybe something like what you have, two burrows.
I don't know.
We have Tito from Whidbey Island. Do the burrows retain the same numbers all season?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do the burrows retain the same numbers all season?
Yes, they do. So once the hole in the bluff becomes an active burrow, it stays as burrow number 6 or burrow number A5 for that season. And then the next year, you know, it's kind of like a new slate. Here on Whidbey, of course, we have so much sloughing, half of our burrows maybe just washed out into the surf. Some people like to keep the same numbers year after year, but yeah, definitely for that duration of the season, it has the same identifier.
And let's see, we have another question from, oh wait, Linda. Could you please review again how we count birds entering and leaving the burrows?
Well,
That is important.
yeah, when the bird disappears into the burrow, that is considered a visit to the burrow. If the bird has a fish of prey in its mouth, then that's a food delivery. Of course, sometimes the bird will fly in with prey and fly out with prey. So that food was not delivered, but you know, you could consider that a visit, but not necessarily a prey delivery. That does happen. So the bird has to disappear into the burrow for it to be a designated visit. None of these ledge sits. It has to actually disappear. Although I will say in the presentation on the video, there was a very shallow burrow, and you could see the Guillemot feeding its chick that sculpin, and it did not disappear into the burrow, but clearly it was a food that was delivered. So, but you wouldn't see that very often. So the bird has to disappear for a visit. I hope that helps answer.
And let's see, that might be the last question.
And Steve, I see your hand.
Another
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, I just have a comment on what Brenda was saying. Several times last year, I saw when a prey delivery was being made to a burrow, there would be sometimes 3 or even 4 PIGUs flying up to the burrow, but only one of them had prey in its mouth. Well, generally, there were usually one or a pair of bald eagles in the firs above the burrows. And my hypothesis was, you know, when you're dealing with predators, there's strength in numbers, right?
Sure.
You confuses them, they don't know which one to go after. And I don't know, but I mean, I saw that a lot, that it's not just usually, you know, you generally see a pair flying up, but sometimes it was 3 or more. And,
Yeah.
you know, and I thought maybe the eagle had something to do with that, but I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, definitely safety in numbers. And a lot of these, what we call escorts, there might be 4 or 5 birds all flying towards the burrow, but only one has the prey, or they'll
Right.
I agree, Steve. I think it is to confuse the predator.
Yeah. Or to confuse us.
That too.
Definitely.
They're probably more worried about us than the eagles.
So my follow-up question about the birds, counting the birds entering and leaving. So if you see a bird that is leaving that you didn't see enter, remind me, is that bird counted?
Yes. I would say if you if you did not see the bird go into the burrow, but you did see it leave, then yes, you could count that as a visit. But since you did not see it go in as, since you did not see it go in, you have no idea if it had food or not to deliver to its chick.
Right, so that would be a no prey visit.
Yeah.
If it exit. Right. But then you don't record exits if you see it enter. So you only want to record one time.
Exactly. No double dipping on the burrows.
Right. Okay, let's see. We do have a question from Patty Nelson, who's a new surveyor down in the South Sound. Are the data sheets filled out after the survey? It sounds like you keep notes during the survey and they are used to fill out the data sheet later.
Yeah. What works best is maybe to have a little notebook, waterproof paper even, to write down your, 3-point in time counts and the prey, or you can have 2 copies of your data sheet, or if you're a very good handwriting person, you can all have it in just one go on a clipboard and then turn that into your data person.
Yeah, and it's really up to you. Some people like to fill out the data sheet on the spot while they're there. I'm one of those people. But certainly, everyone has their own method that works for them. And if you're, like Govinda said, if you have multiple observation points, then it doesn't always make sense to have a separate data sheet for each one. But you guys can decide within your colony how you're going to handle that. So.
And sometimes I'll be at Double Bluff and we have a team of 5 different people. So we all have a data sheet that we, write down our section, I'll be in section B or section D, and then there'll be, 5 pages that we hand to our data person, and then they compile the final one that gets entered in for larger colonies.
So Maria's asking if we turn in multiple data sheets, and I think I should probably answer that because I think each region is different. I know on Whidbey, they do not turn in multiple data sheets for one colony, but I think in the South Sound, they have been doing that. They've been validating every data sheets from every observation point. So before I tell everyone the incorrect format, Maria, I think you do turn in multiple data sheets plus the compiled one. And hopefully I'm not telling you wrong. But yeah, it's really dependent on the region, what they would like to see. So I'll clarify that for you, Maria. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any more hands. I think we got everyone in the chat. If I missed somebody, feel free to speak up. All right. Well, awesome. We are right on time here and we got through all the questions. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Govinda, for putting this on for us. It was really wonderful and you gave us some great tips and tricks for surveying.
Surveyor.
So great. I hope everybody's excited for the survey season. I know I am. And if you have any questions regarding your colonies, just reach out to your regional leads and they can help you with those assignments. So thank you so much.